episode 378. I will be talking a little bit about Warrior Wrestling 29 and a special Saturday night episode of AEW Rampage. Right here, right now, 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Welcome, Wrestling Fanatics, to 360 Wrestling Fanatic. I am your host, Lance Brock. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight, this Saturday night, 1 week before the biggest weekend of the year for professional wrestling. And on tonight's episode, got a special Saturday night episode of AEW Rampage to discuss. But before I get to Rampage, I'm going to talk a little bit about Warrior Wrestling 29. But before I start talking about the show, I just want to say I did not see the whole show. I am just talking about the parts of it I did see. And unfortunately, I did start a little late, and it was not over yet before Rampage started, so I'll have to finish it at another time. And tonight's show was streaming live for free on the Warrior Wrestling YouTube channel. And not only that, but it was here in Michigan, not close to Taylor, but in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And big fan of Warrior Wrestling. I know it's been quite a while since I have talked about any of the shows, though. And this was live streamed on their YouTube channel, and I'm not sure when just yet, but it will be available soon on Pro Wrestling TV. You can either watch right on the Pro Wrestling TV website, or you can download their app on most smart devices, I believe. I know I have it on Roku, great channel for independent wrestling, which features Warrior Wrestling, obviously, and also MLW, Major League Wrestling, and others. Pro Wrestling TV, I definitely recommend. It's a free app and most of the content on it is free. There are a few Warrior Wrestling pay-per-views you can purchase on there, but most of it is free. So I definitely recommend checking it out, giving it a try if you haven't. But let's get on to Warrior Wrestling 29, live from Grand Rapids. And this is where I started watching. Already started Cart Connors and Jake something. Like I said, this match was already started when I tuned in. But what I saw of it, very good match here, actually, with Cart Connors getting the win over Jake something. Definitely impressed with Cart Connors. His stuff here in Warrior Wrestling, what I've seen of him, and NJPW Strong. Next up, Max the Impaler taking on Warhorse. Max Impaler, I'm sure you remember, she has made appearances for Impact Wrestling and is a regular, I think, in Warrior Wrestling and Warhorse, regular on the indies. These two actually worked a pretty good match together, I thought. Wasn't really sure what I was expecting going into this match, but it actually turned out pretty good. And if you follow Warhorse on Instagram, you know that he's trying to get a sponsorship with Slim Jim, and definitely not as good as Macho Man, obviously, but I think they should give him a chance. And next up, Storm Grayson taking on Johnny Warrior, which John Hennigan, also known as a lot of other names. Good match here, I thought. Keeping up with the gimmick where his name is Johnny fill in the blank, whichever promotion he's working for at the time. He's been Johnny Elite, Johnny Impact, Johnny Johnny Mundo, I should say, when he was on Lucha Underground. Pretty good match here. Next up on Warrior Wrestling 29, we have Beastman taking on Jordan Cross. Kind of a David and Goliath. The big Beastman taking on the smaller competitor, Jordan Cross. But actually quite an entertaining match. And we see Beastman bring in his Brontosaurus bone, go to use it. Jordan Cross ducks, bounces off the top rope, and Beastman gets hit with his own bone. Cross is able to roll up Beastman to get the win, to get the upset victory over the much bigger competitor Beastman. And next we have Brian Cage taking on Zachary Wentz. Another very good match here. Another big man taking on not a real small competitor, but smaller than Brian Cage anyway, in Zachary Wentz. These two worked a good match together, and it is Brian Cage getting the win. David did not defeat Goliath in this one. And tag team action is up next. Top Flight taking on the Velocities. Very entertaining tag team match here. Top Flight getting the win. And then after Top Flight showing some sportsmanship, and they give an Aussie after the match. And next up, the Warrior Wrestling Championship is on the line. Casey Navarro taking on Jordan Oliver. And Casey Navarro is alone, not with Frank the Clown, who was not there, but we did get videos of Frank the Clown during the night. But Casey Navarro, representing FTC LLC, takes on Jordan Oliver for the Warrior Wrestling Championship. Pretty good main event. We see Casey Navarro retain, defeating Jordan Oliver. And that was Warrior Wrestling 20, nope, not yet. Sorry, my bad memory once again. There is one more match, but like I said, this is when I turned off to watch Rampage. But also I have to note, for this next match, featuring El Hijo del Vicino, they did mention on the broadcast that due to some streaming rights issues that they would not be able to actually show the video of the match during the live stream, and it was going to be audio only. So you would be able to hear it but not see it. And they did mention that you will be able to watch it eventually, but they were not allowed to show the actual live video of the match. So if you were watching live, you would have been able to hear it but not see it. Kind of like if you could have just like maybe looked away, did something else, and pretend you were listening to it on the radio or something. But I did not see the match. But I'll definitely check it out when the full show becomes available. I'm guessing they meant when it will be on Pro Wrestling TV. I don't know if that had something to do with the streaming issues they were talking about or not. But I saw most of the show, and very good show from Warrior Wrestling. And actually, I'd say all the shows of Warrior Wrestling I have seen, I have not been disappointed by any of them. If you haven't seen any of their shows, I definitely recommend checking them out on Pro Wrestling TV. A lot of their shows are free on there. You can go on the Pro Wrestling TV website or download the app on, I think, most smart devices. I know for sure Roku, because that is what I use. And now let's go over to TNT. It's Saturday night, a special Saturday night, and you know what that means. It is time for AEW Rampage, which was taped from Independence, Missouri, right after Dynamite last Wednesday night. And our commentators, Tony Schiavone, Excalibur, and good old JR, Jim Ross. We start things off with a match. AEW TNT Championship on the line. Powerhouse Hobbs defending against Penta El Zero Miedo. Last week, Powerhouse Hobbs faced Phoenix in the main event, and now he is facing the other half of the Lucha Brothers. Good match here. Powerhouse Hobbs, the last 2 weeks, working good with smaller guys who use the lucha style of pro wrestling. And Powerhouse Hobbs victorious to retain the TNT Championship. Then after the match, Powerhouse Hobbs starts to go after Alex, and then Phoenix comes in to make the save. We find out that this Wednesday night on Dynamite that Kenny Omega will defend the IWGP United States Championship against Jeff Cobb, which that should be quite a special treat this Wednesday night. And Absolute Ricky Starks calls out Juice Robinson, and Juice Robinson comes out, gets in the ring, but then he quickly bails out and exits through the crowd, and he says he will not face Ricky Starks tonight in Independence or next Wednesday in St. Louis because he hates Missouri. But he will face him when the lights are on, bright April 5th, Long Island, New York, on Dynamite. And then we get a video package, Triple J, Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, along with Sonam Singh, and they say that they will soon be champions. Our next match, honoring the House of Black, Brody King, along with Julia Hart, takes on, representing the Jericho Appreciation Society, Jake Hager. Julia Hart at ringside, but then later on in the match, Anna Jay, representing the JAS, comes on the ringside, attacks Julia Hart, but Brody King is able to pick up the victory over Hager. And next up, women's action, Taya Valkyrie defeats Layla Gray. Jade Cargill not too happy about this, and then after the match, Mark Sterling gets in the ring, and Taya hits him with the Road to Valhalla. And next we have Mark Henry going over the main event, and as he says, it's time for the main event right here on Rampage. In 2.0, Daddy Magic Matt Menard and Cool Hand Angelo Parker are on commentary for this one, but actually they only have one headset, so Matt Menard is actually the only one doing commentary. They don't have a headset for Angelo Parker. And the main event is the Acclaimed taking on the Kingdom along with Maria Kanellis. And starts off pretty good. Good tag team action. Maria gets involved. Top Flight chases her off. And Max Caster pins Matt Taven to pick up the win for the Acclaimed. And that was tonight's Saturday episode of AEW Rampage. Good matches. I'm not so sure if the ratings are going to be quite as good as last Friday night's, the late episode with the college basketball lead-in. Hopefully not too bad of ratings, or at least hope not anyway, for tonight's episode, because I already know things are not going to look good for next week's episode. Definitely nothing against Rampage, but the Hall of Fame ceremony will be taking place at that time, and I think maybe GCW might be having one of the collective shows going on. So, of course, busiest weekend of the year for pro wrestling. So, ratings, not sure if that looks too good for them for next week, which next weekend would actually be a good time for Rampage to maybe be on at another time other than Friday night at 10 p.m., but we'll be on at the regular time. And that's all for this Saturday night episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in on Spreaker or wherever you are listening to 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Like I have been saying, got a busy week coming up, especially next weekend. 360 Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, the social media, Twitter at 360 Wrestling Pod, Facebook 360 Wrestling Podcasts, and Instagram 360 Wrestling Podcast as well. And tomorrow morning, the Sunday episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans. But until then, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.